Here with Michael Coady, Worldwide Vice President, Security Business Unit, CA. Michael, got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
We're doing a lot of information gathering on citizens, and privacy is an issue. What can CA contribute to this?
Well, at the moment we're taking some time, not only we're working with different factions of the departments or ministries currently with the Canadian government, but we've been working with other governments around the world, particularly on, I know, certain things and projects that are going on in different countries that we're involved with. It's generally around protecting people's information or building, online portals for citizens of each of these governments or the country, where we find people wanting to do more tax online, income tax, car tax, and those particular functions. We're finding that people are wanting to buy web access management tools to create a layer of protection so they feel comfortable when they go out to the website like they would in a bank, that they're comfortable putting the information there and the government's managing it appropriately.
Now, if we put this up another level to the governmental level,
Right.
There was some talk of a year or so ago about China attacking North America on cybersecurity.
Yeah.
We didn't hear much about that. The media certainly didn't cover it. What are your insights on that?
I'm privy to certain briefings that I get via different communities I'm involved with from the cybercrime perspective. Predominantly, China is not the only area that's doing it. We're finding that these botnets that have been set up, fundamentally, there's places in Russia, there's places in South America, China obviously included, and then there's some specific places in the Middle East, obviously, that are contributing to some of these malicious attacks. Predominantly from a phishing perspective, also from a perspective of looking for web key logging and trying to track people's information as they type stuff and then send it through onto another website. We're finding that the secure, non-secure transmissions, people are finding a way to capture that information and use it against you. So.
Okay, and if we kick it up a few years, what do you see happening 5 years, 10 years from now, or is that too far a horizon?
It all depends on how the governmental adoption rate. There's a lot of conversations. We had a pretty interesting executive roundtable last night with different factions of the Canadian government represented, and a lot of it is to deal with trust, right? Years ago, people would never have thought to do banking online. I think, anything between 3 to 5 years, possibly, depending on the government, depending on the country, not from a big brother perspective, but where there could be a centralized identity vault for the likes of a Paul or a Mick, to where you can be, your SIN number and your passport number might be tied together and would represent who you are as an identity or a citizen of the Canadian, the country of Canada, excuse me. I believe that's on its way. People are using MySpace. Web 2.0 functionality is definitely on the uprise, and people are very trusting of putting that information out there. Would I say it's always the smartest thing to do to publicize or put your private information up there? I'm even reticent to do that, and I was born in the 60s. So I think there are people who are generations ahead of me or who are reticent about doing things online. I think the adoption rate will change with the government, but it'll have to be trust. It's going to be trust. And we find that the web access management space for us is the big uptake with governments around the world right now.
Yeah, well, you've sort of answered my last question, which is, we have all these tools, but the uptake isn't always as good as we would like. How do we convince people? I know you're not a change management agent, but if I'm a manager and I'm using all these wonderful new products, How do I get my staff, how do I get my citizens more involved in their use? I think I may have said this to you prior to the interview, but one of the things that happens, I think, and you quote the movie The Field of Dreams, if we build it, they'll come. And I think an awful lot of it is tied into that. Even my own country in Ireland, we've seen a huge uptake of people, trying to do an awful lot more online for their income tax, their car tax, and a central place to do many different factions of what they. We're relying on the government, but they're so heavily laden with paper and delays and everything else like this. If we can create an environment of trust, first of all, like the banking community has done, to the best of their ability in most of the cases, I think the government will start to see a higher adoption rate. It ties into many different places. In America, people are a little bit more trusting. There's a big uptake in how people file taxes online now in America. And I think an awful lot has come because of the trust that they've established. Slowly, but it'll happen. But you know, the bigger factions, or even the conversations I had last night with some of these other executives from the different branches that were represented last night was, you know, you have to build it first and then establish the trust for the people to actually do it, and then convenience. Right? You can do banking online, you can pull up your ledger online. There's a lot of convenience that's tied into you doing banking online that, you know, people are willing to pay or see, and if the government can do it, fair use them. Have at it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks very much for your time, Paul. Cheers.